What is up, guys, and welcome to week 13 of the Power Rankings. A little bit of a preview for what we're going to be getting to see in the playoffs. I am, of course, Excellent Name, and I am once again joined with Hutch.
What's up, guys?
So let's just jump right into the picks. We've still got Demaster at number 14, but he did manage to pick up his first win of the season in a very impressive fashion. Okay, it actually wasn't really that impressive. It was a 1-0 victory, but he did get a win. So clap for the master. Very happy for you. That being said, it was against the number 13th coach, and the number 13th coach did have a much better season at the start of it. Um, really, even though I said that I likely would move you up last week if you beat Cam, I just can't for a 1-0 victory. It was like such a small token victory. Still not technically the worst season in ASL history. I believe that still goes to Malone, but still quite close. So you are going to keep that number 14 spot.
Yeah, it was a win. I mean, nothing more to say about that. If you want to prove that this season was a fluke, you can't be beating teams that you should be beating by more than 1-0. You've lost to every team except for one, and that one team you only beat 1-0. So that's not really solidifying this as a fluke, because 13 weeks as a fluke is kind of unheard of. That's a lot of days for it to be a fluke. But yeah, I mean, you didn't go 0-13, so that's something. You got something out of this season, and hopefully you can work on your end game before season 6 begins.
Please just don't touch Katana ever.
Basically,
Just
don't
stay
don't
away
touch
from
Victini
my
either.
Pokemon
Victini's
and touch
differential's
my
ruined
Pokemon.
enough.
Yeah,
Dear
I, I
God.
I'm glad you dropped it. That's all I'm going to say. It was a 1-12 record. Anyway, jumping into Cam, he did improve this season over his last season's performance, getting a 3-10 instead of last season, I believe, 2-11 record. I'm sure he's quite disappointed to not get into the single-digit losses of the 4-9 record. Losing to the Master does sting, I'm sure. But he just hasn't been playing well over like the past 6-7 weeks. I think he's been a lot busier recently, just in his real personal life. Lots of finals coming up and stuff, I guess. That's all I can think of for why his performance dropped so dramatically and suddenly. Because he was looking to be a really strong contender at the beginning of the season, but it's just not looking like that anymore. And similar to the Master, I don't imagine him to get particularly far in consolation bracket. I'm not sure how happy he is with his performance overall, but definitely a lot to improve on.
Yeah, I mean, we still have seen improvement this season nonetheless. So that again, it's just something to look back on, take as much as you can out of the season. And yeah, I mean, you didn't play horrible against the Master. It was definitely an exciting game. It came down to the very end of it. And yeah, just improve on, like, go back and watch your games. If you're not sure why you're losing so many games, just go back and watch your replays or look back through your prep based on what your opponent brought and just try and patch up those holes. The best thing is to do is to review what went wrong and improve upon it in the future.
And at number 12, we have Season 3 champion Keister, who actually has a forfeit loss to his name, which has given him a 5-8 record. Of course, as usual, forfeit losses are going to be pretty hard punishing, just because if you can't be bothered to play your games, why should we be bothered to rank you any higher than this? Technically, in the standings, he is actually ranked 12th as well because of this forfeit loss. His differential is honestly pretty appalling for such a historically strong coach in season 3 at least. But yeah, if you want to keep this persona of being like a coach to look out for, then you definitely got to be playing to your heart's content. It feels like you have not been putting in the same levels of effort that you did season 3. It's just been a much worse performance. You've just been kind of declining ever since then.
Yeah, it's been really unfortunate for Keister this season. It doesn't feel like he is he is as invested um, in prepping and playing and all that. His play is definitely shown in that, and he's been getting honestly decimated. Like you said, he's 12 in the standings. He had playoff hopes about 2 or so weeks ago, and yeah, just he couldn't get it done, and he's been on a impending skid since his last win, whenever that was. So yeah, maybe there's hope in the playoff in the consolation bracket, but I don't see him getting past round one, and if he gets past round one, I don't see him getting past that.
Yeah, he does fight Malone, so he's got a decent chance of making that up again round one. But yeah, for sure, round two is going to be the real difficult one. But yeah, at number 11 we have Shadow, who's on the other coin flip of that forfeit loss. Shadow, on the other hand, has put in a lot of effort this season, and it's really shown with much better results. He went 2-11 last season, where one of those wins were from Rocker. So I believe it was a 1-9 record overall that he had. And this time he's really turned it around. He's gone 4-8 with the +1 win for the forfeit, and only a -12 differential record, which is a lot better than last season, which saw like -30 probably around there. So yeah, he's definitely really stepped it up. He has been on quite a big decline, and he doesn't get the momentum of a proper win to go into the consolation bracket. So I'm not super confident that he will go far in that, but he's definitely got to be very happy with his performance overall this season.
Yeah, so I had to put Susie here at the number 11 spot because 94% of the time Susie doesn't win that game and he sits where Keister is sitting. So I'm just going to go based off of that because I would still put Keister lower because it was a forfeit loss, just because you should not be forfeit losing. That is fun for no one. But yeah, Susie, he played the game decently. He knew his win cons. He knew what he had to do to eliminate my threats. It's just the fact is he won on a 6% roll, which is it's borderline hacks at that point. But yeah, this is the best that we've seen Susie play in a while, except for against the AZ game. So like, props on that. But if we're talking realistically, he would be sitting below Keister. So that's why I just had to put him down below here. And I mean, at least he's getting something going into the consolation bracket.
Yeah. Also, Sock Static, know you're watching, know you're raging in the comments section below already. But yeah, we're moving on to number 10, where I put Susie. Ignoring the whole 94% thing, all that hacks that he had. In fairness, his matchup was pretty horrendous. So I'm going to credit him a little bit for playing to a point where he did even win 6% of the time, as atrocious as that is. He could have definitely played it better regardless, but I'm going to put him above Shadow just because he's had a stronger season against a lot of these opponents that he's likely going to have to face in consolation bracket. His only wins are against the teams that are not in playoffs, but with that being said, he's only has to fight teams that are not in playoffs, and therefore I think he's got a much stronger chance than Shadow and Keister do going in to the consolation bracket. I think he's got a very good chance of winning it. If not, then he's likely going to make semifinals at least, assuming that he tries, because like I've said before, he is kind of that gatekeeper into adequacy. Maybe that's a little bit of a harsh way of putting it, but yeah, I think he could perform quite well here. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, and here I have Shadow at the number 10. And it's been really great to see Shadow turn it around because last season was pretty atrocious. He didn't look like he was in it for most games. It was kind of just like throwing stuff together and then getting destroyed, if I'm being 100% honest. But this season, he hung with the best of them. He beat some impressive coaches. I mean, he got himself up to a 5-8 record. I think he would have beat Keister regardless. Just my opinion. And yeah, Shadow has improved immensely, and I think his creative prep is a big reason as to why. Like his play, in my opinion, was always the reason that it was the thing holding him back a lot of the time. His prep has always been good, but now he's really incorporating that creative prep into his play, which is just making for a fantastic turnaround season, and probably it's the most improved coach in my eyes.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's who I voted for in the contending the ASL awards. So make sure to check that video out on our channel and vote in our server. Anyway, at number 9, I have Malone and you have Milan. Malone is another one of the contenders for most improved. He definitely had quite a strong performance this season, going 5-8, I believe it was. Um,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, 5-8. He played very well in his later half of the season, as he often does. And yeah, he brought it pretty close against myself, who's currently up with a bye in the playoffs. So that's definitely phenomenal by him. It did come off my Deoxys' spread being wrong, that he did get it that close, but he definitely played well around that. Regardless, Deoxys being a massive threat to his team. So major kudos to how he played that game, beating Keister 5-0 last week, and then just having a generally rather impressive later half of the season. So assuming he can carry this kind of momentum into the consolation bracket, he's definitely got a good shot of making some moves there. But of course, he does have a pretty hard schedule to get through.
Yeah, and at the number 9, I have Milan. And Milan has had a decent season for as much as we can give him credit towards. Like I've said, I think he's going to go very far in the consolation bracket. And I mean, the reason for putting him below Malone is just it's just the notion that Malone he's really had to try more in this season, in my opinion, because Milan was in the situation where it's like, okay, just come in, just play a couple games, it'll be fine, and just get into the next season, get to use your own team. So he didn't necessarily try as hard as he could, in my opinion. I mean, maybe he did. It's just we didn't see it because he's not as comfortable with his team. But Malone has played all 13 of his matches, which I think merits more of a higher ranking. And it just, in comparison from Malone in the past to Milan in the past, like Milan's record is not good this season for the matches that he's played. And Malone now compared to Malone then, I see a much bigger improvement. Not to say that Milan has dropped off by any means. We'll get a true tale of how truly good he is next season. But yeah, just for now, based on this season alone, I think this was the best way to rank it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Malone, having played more games, does give him a stronger case for being above, if that's how you're going to judge it. I'm personally judging it a little bit more based on how strong I think their chances are going into their respective brackets. So in that sense, I think Milan has a stronger case, just because he's got a stronger record historically behind him. He did go 3-4 this season, so not as great as one would expect from such a great coach. But once again, it wasn't really fitting to his play style. He did lose this game to Gran, but he would have probably won had he not gotten hacked out quite as terribly as he did. Acupressure is quite the move, to say the least. So I think he probably would have been 4-3 had that hacks not happened. And yeah, I think he definitely has one of the strongest chances going into the consolation bracket.
Yeah.
But yeah, something. Oh no, sorry, you go.
All right, so at the number 7, we got the Houston Hoopas here, and I have AZ at number 7. Just there's no reason to put him in a playoff spot. He didn't get a playoff spot, and he had by far the best record out of anybody in the consolation record, so it's pretty simple there. I mean, he did not play TCP horribly. That was a very good game by both sides. I just he didn't pull out the win. There's no reason to put him higher. There's no reason to put him lower, so he's kind of just chilling here at the number 7.
Yeah, I agree. AZ's definitely had the strongest season out of everyone in the consolation bracket, and assuming that he's still got the same fire, he will likely be the winner of the consolation bracket. Obviously, Milan's going to be big competition for that. I think they would actually have to fight in semis too, which is a bit annoying for both of them, I'm sure. But I feel like AZ played better than TCP did in that game. I think he got pretty screwed over by a pretty poor matchup and some questionable plays on TCP's side that he just wasn't expecting. But regardless, obviously, he did lose. He's not in playoffs, so he definitely doesn't deserve to be in the playoff section of the power rankings. So, I know for a fact that he's very disappointed in his season, but he's showed a lot of promise and will likely be a playoff coach next season should he be coming back, and will definitely always be a contender. But going into number 6, you have TJ. Why don't you start off with that?
All right, so pretty much this column is like you can shift them all around however you want. But I decided to put TJ at the number 6 just because it comes down to the fact that myself and Ian clinched early, so we shouldn't be 6. And TJ put himself in the most vulnerable situation, and TCP has won 7 in a row. So it's kind of like myself and Ian clinched first, TCP won 7 in a row, and TJ put himself in a very vulnerable position by losing week 12. So it's pretty much just that. I mean, I could have put TCP down there because he still had the most scenarios where he missed playoffs, but I just felt like TJ almost choked it. Like if Ian would have actually tried, there's no way Ian tried in prepping. He brought his bottom 6 Mons. There's a chance that TJ would have missed playoffs. He still would have made it because TCP won. But it's just always the what if. And yes, TJ's had a very, very strong season, much stronger than last season. It's just he put himself in such a vulnerable position that could have cost him his playoff run.
Yeah, for sure. Similar reasons behind why I put TCP at number 6. Yes, he is currently number 3rd with a 9-4 record, which is better than the coaches above him. But I don't think that he necessarily earned that 9-4 record as hard as you guys earned your 8-5 record. 7-win streak is very impressive, sure. But obviously he was extremely vulnerable coming into the playoffs. He could have lost any of the games very easily, but managed to narrowly avoid it, which, was enough to get him a slightly better record, but it was also making him a very vulnerable position as to whether he would even make playoffs. Obviously, his weak differential definitely shows that all of his games are much closer, and if you're cutting games that close with all of the coaches in the league, then that doesn't necessarily bode super well for you in playoffs when everyone else is putting their 100% in. So yeah, that's basically the reason why I decided to put him in 6. Yes, he does have the best win record out of all of the coaches on this page, but it's just like, that differential is such a big gap that it really does tell the true story.
Yeah, so at the number 5 here, I have myself. Reasoning for putting myself down here is because I don't think I finished as strong as some of the other coaches. TCP again, he finished with 7 wins as a streak, and another coach above me, Ian, didn't really try week 13, so you can't really count that. And he's had a much stronger season, and if you take away his week 13 match, he was destroying people. He was getting high differential wins, and he was climbing very, very fast. And I've said it in multiple videos, Ian and you are my picks to win it all. So you guys play in semis if you do play. So that'll be interesting. And yeah, just put myself down there just because I feel like TCP has been hotter right now in terms of how he's been playing, along with Ian. So yeah. Plus I have, out of the 4 coaches, I have the worst matchup against everybody.
That's also definitely a fair point. I did decide to put Ian at this spot instead, just because Ian does have that slightly weaker. It's really a toss-up of these 3. I definitely think these 3 are above because all these 3 made much stronger showings throughout the entire season rather than just kind of clinching out a big win streak at the end to make it. But I did decide to put Ian a little bit lower, even though he didn't try against TJ. I think that his prepping style is really going to show as a big hole when everyone above him is putting their 100% into prep. Ian just rarely has the time to do that kind of prep. It's definitely shown throughout the season. And, I'm similar style, but I can still I don't know how well Ian will succeed under this kind of pressure. He's never actually made it past round one of playoffs in his career, so obviously I'm not counting him out. He definitely can do it. It's just that he does have the historically weakest performance in playoffs, and his prep is probably the weakest out of all the people on this page.
Yeah, so at the number 4, I have TCP, and reasoning here is TCP, well, yes, he has had 7 wins in a row, which is easier said than done. He was at 2-4 on one point. That is not good. That is a very bad record. And Ian has been a lot more consistent this season. He's been killing it. And, yeah, just take away the Week 13 game, and if Ian tries and he beats TJ, which I think he probably would have, then he would be in the 3rd spot indefinitely. So I just feel like Ian deserves it much more than TCP. TCP is definitely a playoff competitor at the moment. He's had good playoff history. I mean, hell, he won it last season. So, yeah, very excited to see them both in the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. I've got Hutch at number 4 here. I definitely agree with your point in the pretty poor matchup, but Hutch has also had a very strong showing in playoffs previously. Obviously, getting second twice in a row is quite impressive. Obviously, he's going to definitely be wanting to get that win. I'm sure you can say that for yourself. But yeah, just because of his historic performance in the playoffs, and even though he has had a bit of a slippery season this year, realistically, he would also have been at a 9-4 record had he not gotten a 6% roll on his extra. So, it is realistically, he also would have been in that 3rd seed. And that's a much more concrete argument than had Ian tried, because obviously you're not going to get to see that game play out until they meet up in playoffs, if that happens. So yeah, I did decide to bump Hutch just a little bit higher. But yeah, at number 3, I do have TJ, and I think that his amount of effort that he's been putting in and the amount of effort that he's likely to put into playoffs is really going to show. Obviously, he did put himself in a lot of danger by losing to, I don't remember
Milan.
who, but losing to someone, losing to Milan, who's obviously a strong coach, but he probably shouldn't have lost to. Just because he did put himself in a vulnerable position doesn't mean that he's not going to perform very well in playoffs. Just his prepping style seems like it would fit this time period quite well. So yeah, I've got a fair bit of faith in TJ to pull out some big wins. Obviously, he does have to beat Hutch, which is got a very strong record historically in playoffs as well. But we'll see how it goes. His prep is just that phenomenal that it compensates for his slightly weaker play. So you want to lead off discussion on number 2?
Sure. So at the number 2, we both have Gran, and the reason that I have put Gran here is because pretty much you've had a much stronger season than Gran. Gran is 4-2 this season. You're welcome, Gran. And you are 10-3, so that is a vastly different record. 4-2 is about a 650. It was like 650-ish, 667 or whatever. And then a 10-3 is like, I want to say it's like in the 800s or 700s, somewhere around there. So it's a big difference, honestly. And you have had more impressive wins. I don't think Gran has had to play a ton of higher up coaches because I feel like Cody played most of them for him. So it's a pretty simple one for me.
Gran lost to all of the top coaches that he played.
Yeah. He lost to you. He lost to me. I think he lost to TCP.
No, he didn't play TCP.
Oh, then Cody played him. But yeah, it also comes down to who I think has a better shot in the playoffs. And as I said earlier, you and Ian are my picks to win it. So naturally, I'm going to put you in first.
Fair enough. Yeah, I agree. With that, he hasn't beaten any of the top coaches. Obviously, he pretty much clinched playoffs as soon as he took over the team, just because of how good of a record he got given. So I don't think he really did try all out in any of his games, really. He did say that he tried versus me because that was earlier in the season, obviously, so he still did kind of need to try. But past that, he didn't really try too hard. But with that being said, historically, these two teams' buys are not good. There have been 5 seasons so far, and an overwhelming majority of the time, the teams with the buys got fourth. The only times that this didn't happen is season 1 and in season 3 where Keister managed to win. So, having a buy is honestly not as good as it seems just because of this historic thing. So, even though we're going to put the buy teams in the buy slots because they deserve the buys, honestly, I would still be a bit worried for both of these teams going into it. You're not going to have the same momentum that the teams who win round 1 to face you are. So it's definitely got to be a scary section. Obviously, Gran does have less data to back him up, so he's going to be a little bit less sure. Whereas I have played all of these coaches, so I'm going to have a bit more data to place myself in first. But either way, any of these teams in playoffs and in the bye can win. The buys don't mean that they're necessarily going to go that far in playoffs. They could very much lose in their first round.
Yeah, 3 of the 8 buys have actually gone on to go to the finals. It was because Brad and Raver were both buys, and they played in season 1, and then Keister played in season 3. So having a buy is not a good thing in the ASL. It's not good at all.
Pretty scary having a buy, and being as strong a coach as I am to consistently perform well in that section means I'm going to have that buy frequently, which means I'm likely going to come fourth frequently.
Just don't play while running on 30 hours or being up for 30 hours.
That's also true. 40 hours, thank you very much.
There we go.
But, anyway, obviously, when it comes to playoffs, anyone who makes it can win it all. Theoretically, the 2 teams with the buys should be more likely to win, or in this instance, myself, not Grant so much, because Grant doesn't have the data to show that he earns the buy. So Grant's kind of in a really tough situation just because he didn't play all the games to earn the buy, but he still has the buy, which means he's not going to have the momentum of winning a game. So, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the playoffs unfolds. This is one of the strongest playoffs we've had yet. At least one of the 5 strongest, got to say. But I think that wraps it up for Week 13 Power Rankings. So I guess we'll see you guys next season.
There is one thing I want to add.
Okay.
Grant he's not in a horrible spot, because the biggest issue about playoffs is having to rematch people. Grant doesn't have to do that with everybody. So if he gets his matchups well, he won't have to rematch people, and he can bring all new prep that people won't have seen. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
So hypothetically, he plays either you or TJ. He only played you.
Yeah.
And then he makes finals, then the only coach that he would have to play that he's played before is myself.
Exactly.
So that is a good point. He's got a very good chance of not running into anyone that he's played, so it will be the first game that they play.
Yeah.
So in that case, the one time that I don't ask, is there anything you want to add? You have something to add?
True.
But anyway, I think that does indeed wrap it up now.
All right.
I'm just going to assume your silence means that it is.
Yeah.
So yes, see you guys next time,
See you guys.
which will be next season.
Yeah, see you in season 6.